See, I'm not
Just
a machine.
let words come out.
I'm not
Just
a machine,
have
Adam.
thoughts.
Right? I'm a human fucking being. Okay,
A
Use
human
your
being,
tongue
not a
and
human
teeth.
doing.
right.
You know?
You can't just switch me on and say perform.
Graham.
Like
Perform.
like I would need to be paid for like an actor, like actually like a professional of some kind to be able to do that. I'm not. I'm just
We can work something out. Hang
Right.
on. Hang on.
I
I think I got something.
Are you gonna hit me? Like,
I'd have to be like a servant, like
yeah,
a slave.
yeah. Like
to,
this would need to be like fucking 1905 and like Russia for this to be legal. What do you own?
Yeah, I got something for you. Here we go. You take care of us, I'll take care of you. All right.
Adam just gave me
Yeah, a quarter.
A quarter with like weird stuff on the back of it. What is this? It's like paint.
Probably gunk. I don't know. I think I got it from a pool hall.
Gunk.
So can I live? Or is my brother trying to gun me down? Scuffle a couple of rounds till we hear the thunder sound. No lightning, clash of the titans, and after the violence, a moment of silence. Cause I want mine the fast way, the ski mask way, looking for a fast pay. And it's
Kobe wants to main mic. Okay.
Back off.
I don't want to.
We
but
got
I'm
a
going
badass
to.
here.
This is the New Low News Show. My name is King Kobe,
I'm MC Graham.
Adam Orangutan.
and I was just thinking about something today, guys.
Yeah, what's that?
You know, what does it mean to live in 2013 in America?
Well, I mostly interpret it as pain,
Suffering.
a straight line pointing down.
Self-deprecation.
The question is, when did it start to decline? You know,
I'm probably the wrong person to ask because my date will be extremely early, like 1781 or something like that. But I think
August 22nd, 1987, I think.
that's when you were forced into the world. No, a lot of people, if they do think America's declining, they point to they were like around the 60s or the 70s,
Right.
For a variety of reasons.
well, for economic reasons specifically.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of things have changed. I mean, we can remember in the 90s, gasoline was like $1.19 a gallon
Yeah.
or something.
I remember when gas was like $1.05 a gallon, 99 cents a gallon. I mean, of course, I was in the backseat of a car, like 6 years old or something.
yeah, it was like when you watch an old movie or something. You
Yeah.
know, like,
But still, I mean, it's in our lifetimes. And now, look at it, second term of Obama. You know what happens in the second term? Shoots right up to $4 or $5 a gallon.
Well, they were claiming that it was going to be more than that right after election. It was supposed to be like $5 a gallon. I mean,
I think
a premium's over $4 now.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's keeping the price of gas in check is that the demand is still really low because no one's doing anything because people are still broke. This is a good time as any to get this out there. Peak oilers, for example, are criticized because people always say there's tons of oil on the planet. We're very far away from running out, and that's true. And most of the oil on the planet will probably still be there even after humans are done with our sort of oil binge.
Okay.
Right. What peak oil is talking about is production rates. So it's not how much oil there is. It's how much you can get out of the ground at a given time. Right, like per day, and how much that costs, right? And so how much return on investment do you get? Like,
Gotcha.
So,
At a certain point, it just becomes completely untenable.
right. And then people will say, okay, well, when that happens, we'll switch to something else. And then you say, what? Because there's nothing at the moment,
Right.
nothing conspicuously that can replace
No,
oil
any
industries.
sort of green technology uses petroleum in its own production, so we
Yeah.
either need to be rapidly changing to it right now.
And that's what's known as the energy trap. And what happens is if you do need to suddenly switch, you're taking all that energy that you would spend on keeping your economy going and you switch it to solar panels or whatever, well then you don't have that energy to go do all the other things you want to do. So that can also cause its own sort of crisis. So what I'm saying is we're fucked one way or another, unless people develop this really awesome technology that isn't right now available. So that will lead to the abolition of a lot of things, and one of which is the wage system, and the other which is toilets.
It's the last struggle, the class struggle. It's the last struggle, the class struggle.
Well, what I think is interesting, our cultures are criticized as being very selfish, right? But it's like the only people who are allowed to be selfish are the very rich, So it's like, but like if a worker, for example, is like, if we're talking about workers going from 7:25 to 9. And people are like, well, why should we do that? You can just say, I want more fucking money. You know what I mean? Like, it's not rocket science, like, to
Yeah.
explain.
And there'll still be assholes out there, though, that say, why do they deserve that
Yeah.
much?
It's like, I don't necessarily deserve anything. I want more, you
Right.
know? So give
Yeah.
it to me or I will take it from you. And that's,
I was talking to a coworker
Yeah.
of mine, and we were talking about like hourly wage and what we make and what the difference was, and showing her like my electronic paycheck stub, and she's like, "Well, yeah, that's not a bad amount to bring home with you." I'm like, "I want more." It's like I know that, but like you could always use just a little bit more.
It's just people, we've talked about this before, people always bring up that things could be worse, and the opposite is always equally true. Things could be a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like I wouldn't mind having $1.50 pay increase as well, but I already make
Let's
above
bump
minimum wage.
everybody up.
Yeah, why can't we bump everybody up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
runaway inflation and some bullshit like that.
yeah, I mean, well, my personal idea, what I would do is I would just give everyone a check from the government.
Yeah.
Just a flat sort of sum.
It's 1,000 big ones.
Just every
That's what I got from Bush.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
month, like, essentially.
Every month.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's what's
Can we afford that, or can they afford that to get to us?
They can print it out.
Yeah, it's true.
See what happens.
Yeah.
But no, that's called, if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's called a citizen's dividend.
What do you think most people would spend that $1,000 on, if they even spent it?
Pay down credit card debt.
That's what I would do, definitely. But what about next month?
Um,
Pay down more credit card debt, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the next month you save. Like
Right,
how
and
many?
you get out of the hole. Right?
How many more months do you really keep saving for? So I'm wondering though, like eventually, if that $1,000 a month plan actually went into effect, like when would you actually see some type of like positive reaction
Right.
from it,
Well,
or
you-
it's economic stimulus from it?
Yeah, you would see it. I think you'd see some of it right away.
Yeah.
Just because, like, some people don't save, you know, or,
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
or they don't need to.
Like everybody's just so happy to see a grand. It's like fuck yeah, there's that big screen TV I always wanted.
Yeah.
I might do that too.
Right. But what you're talking about is like with the paying down debt.
Right.
Like that's interesting because that's actually the real problem we have right
Yeah.
now is it's too much debt overhang. You know, too
Yeah.
much private debt. So that's not productive at all. All it does
No.
is just send money back to the bank.
Yeah.
You know, what do banks do? They just steal. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like
They reinvest it and then you lose your 401k,
Yeah.
your actual savings.
yeah, and they crash the economy again or something
Yeah.
like that. So so if I was to do anything, I probably wouldn't even start sending out checks right away. I would have ways for people to restructure their debt.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
and then write that down.
Oh, government subsidized to get people out of private debt?
Yeah, or just write it down, just across the board. Like,
Okay.
just say, I'm King Obama, you know.
That's the thing we talk about him being an imperialist.
Yeah.
I wish he would be more of one.
Yeah.
In some
Actually,
cases.
Didn't you say that?
Hmm.
Like, Obama can just tell the banks?
Well, yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. You mentioned that. I can't remember, like, if it was, like, earlier this year when we were doing, like, first starting the show again.
Yeah.
You said, like, Obama can literally tell the banks, it's like, no, the students don't owe you dick anymore.
Right.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah.
Well, you liberals will remember how upset you were of all the executive power that Bush was giving himself.
Yeah.
Obama has all that same.
Yeah, it never went away.
Yeah.
Like, but at the end of the day, the man with his hands on the briefcase, you know.
Man of the year.
Yeah, and by that I mean the nuclear football.
I was going to say that guy, yeah.
Yeah, when he talks, you have to listen. Like that's the nature of power, you know.
Yeah.
So he could just tell the banks. I mean, because kings used to do this. Like they used to every couple of years, or I think in some cases every 50 years, they would actually just tear up the debt.
It was
you
called
know?
Jubilee.
Yeah, and that's actually during like revolutions. One of the most common things people do is they go into wherever the debt records are kept and they just break
Burn.
them. Yeah.
Burn everything.
Yeah, it's known as the Durden Plan, you know.
To us, the American dream is nothing. To us, the American dream is nothing.
The upcoming budgetary meltdown, the crisis that we predicted, I believe, a couple months ago when we pointed out that in their compromise at the time that all they had done was set up 3 more cliffs that were going to start emerging around this time. So, and lo and behold, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
I don't know why people thought that members of a party that were put into power with the specific objective of cutting government spending were gonna at some point, like that's literally, I think, the only thing they care about is like making sure
That's
people.
the agenda.
Yeah, and I don't know what people thought was gonna happen. It's like, oh, eventually they'll come to, you know.
I think people like intellectually the idea of cutting government spending.
Yeah.
They don't like what it actually does.
Right. Well, because there are 2 things we spend money on in this country: Social Security and fighter jets. And you're gonna have to cut one of those 2 things.
You got guns and butter.
Right.
You know?
And everything else we spend money on, we don't spend that. It's not a huge part of our budget, you know. And idiots, when they talk about cutting the budget, they're like, oh, there are all these departments that we don't need, like the Department of Energy. It's like, dude, that's like $20 billion a year.
Right.
It's nothing. Also, that's what regulates nuclear energy in this country. So I kind of like those guys.
Yeah.
But then when you talk about we're going to cut, we're going to furlough Pentagon workers
Right.
or whatever, people say no, that's inconceivable.
Yeah, exactly.
We should never ever cut defense.
Because we need every single fucking
Non-working F-35 jet.
yes, that we're never ever gonna fucking use because the age of conventional warfare is over for eternity. And
I mentioned this earlier to these guys. They've all seen the same photograph. You guys, the listeners, may have already seen this floating around on Facebook as well. It's this comparison between the Human Genome Project and the F-35 jet.
yeah,
The cost per U.S. citizen for the Human Genome Project was $9
Yep.
per person.
really $9 per person.
Yeah, so this was a $3 billion project,
yeah,
and it's actually had a return on investment.
right.
It's like $147 for every dollar that was spent.
Yep.
I think if my memory serves.
Well, and we can do cool shit with that stuff. Like
Exactly.
they can trace exactly where your ancestors came from.
Exactly.
Like down to like the fucking region of
Right.
like Scotland where like I guess mine were painted in various colors running around naked. They can look at that. They can figure
Yeah.
that out just through the
Now the total
analyzing.
expenditure on a fighter jet that could theoretically take off like a helicopter, which does not work. Total expenditure, if I'm not mistaken, was $1.9 trillion. So this is over $6,000 per U.S. citizen.
Oh my fucking god.
Yeah,
See, when you put the numbers like that, you're like,
and they're still making them.
yeah,
They're still making them.
and it's
Not
like,
using them, still making
and
them.
it's like, when are we gonna who are we gonna use fighter jets against?
No one.
No one.
No one. What really puzzled me was the fact that there was this law of just that was passed back in 2011 to have these force cuts by, what was it, March of this year?
Yeah, it's March 1st, I think.
March 1st. So, to me, it was kind of like, you know who could solve this problem? Future people.
We've been doing that for quite a while now.
Yeah. Like, that was their best idea that they had 2 years ago. It's like, let's sleep on this. I know who can do this.
Well, that's
better than us.
Yeah, me.
Me 2 years from now.
Because all the same people are there,
Yeah.
essentially. So, okay, if you guys were in charge of the budget, right, just hypothetically,
Right.
you guys were given totalitarian control over
I wish.
over
Oh,
the fiscal
wow.
policy of the United States, what would you change?
I'd fire the military.
The whole
Fire shit cannon.
Yeah.
Like no retirement. No. You know what I mean? They're just gone. Go get a job. You know what I mean? Stop sucking Uncle Sam's tit. Go out there and be somebody. You know what I mean? Work your way up at McDonald's. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not getting the sweet, meals ready to eat.
Right.
That sweet disability payments, any of that shit. You know, just
That
get,
sweet psychiatric treatment,
yeah,
you know?
get the fuck off the dole.
Yep.
Then next, I'd put all that money
Right.
into space travel.
Okay.
Travel, like motherfuckers in space.
Yeah.
We're not doing any of this unmanned rover shit anymore.
It just doesn't feel the same.
no, we're
Yeah,
gonna put
yeah.
people golfing on the planets. That's
Yeah.
the whole. That's the plan.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I don't have much. My plan wouldn't be much different. I would keep the military though. I'd actually probably increase the size of it, but not for like
Right.
militaristic purposes. To have like build shit, you know, here like roads or something like that.
Right.
Maybe like let them do police work or something. I'd fire cops maybe before.
Yeah, no more cops. That's another. That's
Yeah.
more of a local government kind of thing.
So Adam, what would you do?
I don't know if I can say this on internet, but I would cut defense spending a little bit.
Yeah.
A little tiny bit.
A tiny bit.
Yeah. Like, what would you? Do you know what specifically you would scale back? Or
I'm not entirely too sure because I know there's probably a lot of research and development that's allocated in the defense budget.
Right.
That I would not cut.
yeah.
I love technology. I love science. I do not want to see that money go to waste.
Right.
So I would probably cut the F-35 project.
Just we're not going to use them. We don't want them.
Yeah.
You know.
Sell them for scraps. I'd probably put a little bit more money into Social Security
Yeah.
because I want Social Security when I retire.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a good idea.
I'd probably lower the retirement age to like 60 something.
Okay, yeah.
So that way, like, all the people that are, like, just, sitting around, like, wishing they could retire and, like,
Right.
working instead, like, they could just retire.
And I would put at least like $100 million into the cure of diabetes, because I'm fucking sick and tired
Of dispensing.
of a disease that can be cured.
Yeah.
I'm just sick and tired of it. It's like there's no reason why people need to pay like thousands upon thousands of dollars for insulin, diabetic supplies, pumps, all this kind of shit. And those diabetic supplies, if they're eligible, people on Medicare. Medicare pays for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a government that's already paying for these supplies when they can just supply the cure for
Right.
it. So why do that? You know what I mean?
Well, because they're not interested in cures.
They're interested in making money.
I
Yeah.
don't give a fuck.
I know.
I want a government that takes care of our children. Like, no joke. Like, how cool would that be?
What are you, some kind of bleeding heart, Adam?
I'm just saying. I don't want to die either. So I think it would be a good idea to reallocate a lot of fucking money. It would be an amazing idea.
I think the point, though, is that we would all do things quite a bit differently.
Right.
And I think you, the listener, would too.
Yeah. What would you do
No
with
one.
the budget of the United States of America?
I would build.
This would be a good thought experiment.
Yeah.
Right into the new level.
Yeah.
Yeah, comment on it, honestly. We're kind of curious. I'm curious what you would do.
Yeah. I would build a rocket ship,
Yeah.
and I would take off into space, and I would never
Come back.
And
Space elevator, though.
yeah, probably my last message to you guys would be like, suckers or something like that.
I think mine would be ha 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 ha.
End transmission.
Yeah.
Burn in hell.
The rundown.
No one wants to fight us. We have 6,000 nuclear missiles. We have submarines that are sitting on the bottom of the ocean, whose only job it is to pop up and launch a nuke at someone if they attack us. Right? These are people that could attack if the entire country was wiped out. They could retaliate.
What do you think about Iran?
I don't fucking care about Iran. Like, well, yeah, there's no democracy there. So what? There's no democracy here. Oh, they're being oppressed? Great, that's human history. Is a history of people screwing each other over.
Yeah. What do you think about Syria?
I don't think about Syria. I don't spend a whole lot of time. Like I hear it on the news, everyone's like, we should do something. What? What are we gonna do? Go in there and
We're gonna hand everybody guns.
right?
That's it.
This is a place where there are
No,
eight.
we're gonna pick our favorites.
You're right.
It's like having a couple kids. You pick your favorite. That one goes to college.
This is a place. Syria is a place with 8 separate religions that all fucking hate each other, and we're gonna and they've hated each other for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. And we're gonna pop in there and we're gonna sort that shit out
Overnight.
overnight, over 10 years, over 20 years. Who cares?
What do you think about North Korea? They tested a nuke recently, I heard.
Actually, those guys are guys you can't sleep on, because if there's one regime in the world that we might actually need to employ a serious conventional army against, it's probably them.
Oh, so you would support the submarine nuclear launcher?
Well, if
if
they started shit, because they have enough conventional shit to wipe out a significant quantity of our troops, and
What's their standing army? Is it over 1 million?
it's like millions of people. It's one of the largest in the world.
Wow.
And
China's over 1 million too, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
China's not interested in fighting anybody.
Yeah, no, they're China's like, and it's funny when people bring up like the Chinese threat. They're always like, gotta watch out, the sleeping dragon. It's like, shut up. They spend more money on making sure there isn't a peasants' rebellion than they do on trying to how would they get here?
I remember.
Like how would they even? Who would they attack? Maybe Taiwan, but they're not going to do that because we like Taiwan, or I do.
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Fun fact: every time I drive by one of those speed cameras, I think to myself, just briefly, what would happen if I drove into that? Just kamikaze, like took it out for the greater good.
Well, you would destroy it, or at least disable it.
Right.
At least point it in another direction where it couldn't surveil traffic.
Plausibly total your car.
Total my car. Probably go to jail for like being a
Being a bag.
yeah.
Well, a lot of those speed cameras are run by private companies.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest at this point. I wonder how much they pocket off of running that service.
Oh, all your money.
Yeah.
There's also red light cameras. There's also just surveillance cameras just for the street corner, like the blue light districts in
Yeah.
Baltimore, for example.
Yeah.
I've been to the blue light district, some of them.
Yeah.
I've been on the outskirts of the blue light district.
Well, I think those cameras are just signals to like.
This is dangerous
Yeah.
for white people.
Yeah. Attention, white folks. Make a left as soon as possible.
Find 83. But not to be too local about it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's surveillance cameras everywhere. I think the UK has the highest concentration of them per population.
I think it's the most heavily surveilled society. And
And,
I saw some shit about how they can. I don't know if this is implemented yet, but they can actually. They're working on a program at the very least to be able to pull like information off the cars that they see on a surveillance camera. So it's like, all right,
so they can like run the plates.
Yeah, automatically run the plates and trace like as you move through the city. You know?
That would be cool, actually, because a friend of mine, when he was at the local bar,
Yeah.
there were a bunch of people that were in there that are not regulars. He had his like sweatshirt, his keys, stuff like that, in his sweatshirt pockets. Someone grabbed his sweatshirt. There's cameras of this girl setting it aside, going back into the bar, like after it was closed, I guess, something like that. And then she makes like a round out around the bar, I guess to find other shit to steal. I'm not sure.
Oh shit.
And then on her way out, picks up the sweatshirt with his keys, wallet, I think, and all kinds of shit. And he ended up having to get his car towed, I think, and get new keys and everything, his house keys and stuff like that. But they saw her leave the parking lot in her own car. Thing is, the quality of the cameras could not capture the license plate.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying like maybe the upside of heavy surveillance is that if someone's being a total bag and stealing your stuff,
Yeah.
we just trace them. You know?
Exactly.
And also, one thing we were talking about before the show, I was saying is that it's probably also good for an alibi. You know.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, if someone gets shot and they put out the
Describe a
description-
tall, lanky kid in a blue sweater and a colored shirt.
with like a nasal guffaw, that was loudly apparent to all witnesses. See, that's the thing. If I was living in a pre-camera world, I would be fucking screwed. People would be like, that easily matches Graham's description. It was obvious that at one point he was going to snap and do this, so we had to put him away forever. Now I can just say, it's clear that I'm not the perpetrator, because as you can see by this footage, I'm at 7-Eleven purchasing 3 Arizona tall iced tea cans with change. So I couldn't have been the murderer.
Well, so that gets to sort of a fundamental argument about surveillance, which is that if you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to be worried about.
Yeah.
You might even be exonerated.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, that is not an inherently invalid argument. Like, there are people who will trade liberty for security because they want to be safe.
Here's the thing, though. Like, when you're just being watched,
Right.
You can just tell. You just
Yeah.
know. Like, when you're in a store, or you're in school, or in prison, or something like that, and you know that the cameras are watching you, it's just going to affect your behavior. It's,
And it just feels bad. You feel intruded upon, right, by...
It almost makes you feel like you are doing something wrong.
Right. And so yeah,
and maybe it makes you a little angry.
Right.
Maybe you just want to just show them what you're made of. You know what I mean? Like, if you think I'm a bad guy, I want to be a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Live up to their expectations.
Yeah. Oh, I'm the bad guy? Oh, is that it?
Well, maybe.
Is
it? Well, maybe I'll just have to prove that by pulling out this gun, going into a store, and knocking it over,
etc.
Something like that. So yeah, well, that's the whole idea that it's like expectation effect. Is that if it's obvious that you expect nothing or less than nothing from someone, they just start to live up to that. They start to try to fulfill that expectation you have.
Right.
And I don't know if that is really happens all the time, but it's still something to take into account, and also just the fact that it just doesn't feel good to be watched. And so what are people
it's
doing
sort of
about
oppressive in its own right.
Yeah.
And anarchists, anarchists in Germany have started a campaign they call Camover 2013, where it's sort of a competition between different places in the world, since we have this sort of global internet network, where you compete about how many surveillance cameras you can remove or destroy. And so far, the winner this year is on the outskirts of Seattle. Anarchists have removed 17 cameras. There's actually some pretty awesome photos of them, flaunting the cameras, wearing all black and masks or whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't you mention that someone used a lasso
Yeah.
to bring down one of the cameras?
Yeah, they have some action shots of them, being very creative in how they're taking them down. And the police have noticed, too. That's another aspect of this. Like, they said that they were doing it in sort of solidarity with some jailed anarchists or something, but, they actually consider, like, they said that surveillance is part of their anti-terrorism, agenda. So they look at them more or less as terrorists because they're fighting against the apparatus they use to
fight terrorism.
You're right.
Yeah, well, and that was probably one of the earliest criticisms of the war on terror was how there would be this sort of mission creep. Because it's like if terrorism can happen anywhere, then you can theoretically use anything that you're trying to quote unquote do to prevent it as label that as part of your like broader anti-terrorism activities, and that'll make you and then you can punish the people who break these laws even more harshly than you maybe could a common criminal.
So if you're looking at it in a larger perspective or a global perspective, you might look at the war on terrorism as sort of just general fascism,
right,
or something, and anarchists as general freedom fighters. That would be the very I have a lot of sympathy for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of bullshit. Even if crime does happen and bad things happen, then if they're not caught on camera or the perpetrator goes free, it doesn't bother me that much. What does bother me is literally Big Brother, eyeing me all the time.
I remember seeing some graffiti. Google, someone painted this on some type of like Jersey barrier or something like that. Street art, exactly. And the 2 O's in Google were actually CCTV cameras.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, but the one thing that I think we can all, maybe take solace in is that there's so much data being collected about people, with these cameras, with what you do on the computer, all that other stuff, that they do not have the manpower or even the sophistication to comb through all of it. And so they're actually probably hurting themselves by flooding themselves with so much of this information. So they can't even they can't even. It would be very difficult for them to even single people out.
Even private businesses who have their own security footage, like security cameras, how many of those cameras are actually recording?
Yeah.
How many of those cameras are actually using one tape being recorded over and over again?
A lot of it's kind of a scare tactic.
Yeah.
Like you see those
It's
lines.
a deterrent.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. Like, I have a sign on my front lawn that says, like, premises are being surveilled. I don't even have a surveillance camera. I just have a sign, like...
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I have a sign that says, owner is on methamphetamine.
Yeah, it's just and extremely paranoid, will lash out,
Supports the Second Amendment.
Yeah. Not that you have a gun, you just support it in principle,
Well, they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know anything.
Well, that's the thing.
It's not their right to know.
Right. And... And actually, yeah, but sort of like going back actually to how I think it was Jeremy Bentham was designing these prisons in the 1800s that had like one-way mirrors, so that surrounding the area where the prisoners were being contained, so the prisoners would not be able to know if at any point there was someone else on the other side looking at them. And so the argument, or Bentham's argument, was that you don't actually need that many people to staff a prison like that because it's the illusion of surveillance that's keeping people in check. And you could have one guard, or 2 guards, with the whole thing, because the prisoners don't know where the guard is.
Maybe this is a little melodramatic, but even the whole if you see something, say something campaign is sort of a program of suggested citizen surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust your fellow, people.
For me, that's actually difficult to do because I remember witnessing a couple things a couple months ago, and it's like, should I call the police? Should I not call the police? Was this
should
really
I be a
crime?
vigilante?
Should I just police the world myself?
Yeah.
Exactly. Ended up calling the police.
Yeah.
And what can they really do? They send out a car.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened after that.
Guy does the paperwork. Guy leaves.
Yeah.
Goes home.
I just saw these 2 Joe Schmoes next to a car. The hazard lights were on.
Mm-hmm.
And the car alarm wasn't going off, though. I thought it was kind of strange. And, of course, as I pull up to them, they looked like deer in headlights. They just froze.
Yeah.
So, to me, it seemed...
If they were the car's owners...
Yeah, they just get in the car and leave, or, go back into their home.
Or flag you down, or
something
whatever.
like that, yeah. Or be on the phone with AAA or something, you would think. So, to me, it seemed, extremely suspicious, so I just called it in for suspicious activity.
Yeah.
So
Well, two things on that front. One, if you are doing something illegal, you should always make it look like you're supposed to be doing whatever it is you're doing.
wear a suit.
Right, yeah, wear a suit. You could fucking just walk into a car, like, open up a car that doesn't belong to you, just drive away with it. And if you look, like, if you just have this air of confidence, people assume,
Just wave to anybody that's passing by.
how's it going, my fellow citizens? You know,
Yeah.
and then you have a new car. But, like,
Even if you're breaking in, hot wiring in, you know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is mine, I lost the keys,
yeah,
I don't know.
it's crazy, you don't feel like calling AAA, you know, and, yeah, you're just in the car. Like, that's
Yeah.
how I got into Batman, like, the last Batman movie. There's a huge line. I didn't feel like waiting in it, so I just walked in. You know, like, you know, just, like, make eye contact with the guy taking the ticket. How's it going, you know? Just, I probably didn't even need to buy a ticket. I probably just could have gotten the whole thing for free. But,
Probably.
but the other thing about it, with, like, going back to the whole thing about the say something campaign, is you know, when it, like, tells people not to, like, trust their fellow citizens, a fellow citizen might be a terrorist, something like that. What I've always thought about the war on terror and all the related shit is that you're just not going to be the victim of terrorism. The odds of Al-Qaeda attacking you are so low. When you think about, there's 310 million people in this country. Most terrorist attacks occur overseas. The most dangerous thing you do on a given day is probably getting in your car and going somewhere. If you are willing to do that, if the likelihood is less than getting into a car accident, you just should put it out of your mind, because it's simply not going to happen.
Right.
So why worry?
Why worry? And then also, when they wage this war on terrorism, your odds of being sort of harassed, persecuted by police goes up.
Right.
So
You're probably more likely to get...
you're more likely to get terrorized by the war on terror than actual terrorism.
Yes.
You know.
So, in the end, I guess what you're saying is the cops are the real terrorists.
In the end,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is fuck the police.
Yeah. Fuck these cameras.
187 on a motherfucking cop. I'm gonna compete in cam over
Right.
myself.
Do you want to put that out there?
I am a terrorist.
Oh, God.
I'm not affiliated with Kobe.
Headline, the first civilian drone, target was...
It's supposed to be Dorner, but they just burned him to death in a cabin. Classic Waco 90s style shit.
Yeah.
I think I see something flying around, out the window, Kobe. Not quite sure if that's a drone or... No, yeah, it is a